Hey guys, I'm Tim Kotzman here with Adam and James. How you guys doing today?
Good. How about you, Tim?
I'm doing well. Adam, do you want to start with a little bit of your background and we'll go from there?
Sure. Yeah. So we're both with Stampseed, your sponsors. We're happy to be here. Appreciate you inviting us to the show. We're big fans of the show. And I think our stories are a little different than most of your other guests. You know, we don't come from a finance background. We're not software engineers. My background is actually in hand tools. And so my family has been in the hand tool business since 1952.
Wow.
My father and uncle grew up in that business. My brother and I joined, I think my dad said as soon as we were potty trained, he started bringing us into the office and putting us to work.
That's a good age.
Yep. We used to work for McDonald's at that time, so we worked cheap. And so we kind of grew up in that business. In the mid-'90s, we used to do these weekend hobby shows to make some extra money. My dad would set us up and we would have a table with all the different tools and we would deal with all these men that were making all different types of hobbies, whether it was trains or computers or model cars, things like that. And we came up with the idea to make a retail website, an e-commerce website. So this is like in the mid-'90s, before anything else really existed. And we made a website where we were selling the tools that our family's company was distributing. And that kind of grew over time into its own business. And we eventually split that off and just focused on it. And around that same time, we recognized that one of our most popular items was a set of steel stamps. And what was odd is that these steel stamps that were really kind of designed for industrial use were being used by women who were making personalized jewelry with it.
Okay.
And so that kind of inspired us to start another company called Impress Art, which is a whole line focused on stamps for making personalized jewelry and crafts. So we're in the jewelry industry and also in the craft industry. So we deal with like Michaels and Hobby Lobby and then large jewelry suppliers.
Okay.
And then, so we've been focused on stamps now for about 15 years. And one of our employees, James, came up with the idea for Stampseed. And I will let James talk more to that and tell you a little bit about his background. And then we'll get back into Stampseed. How about that?
Sounds great.
All right.
James?
Hey, how's it going, Tim?
Great.
So yeah, my background is I've had a lot of different jobs, throughout my life. And I started working for Adam and his brother Jeff, I think like 2017, was it? Probably something
Somewhere
like that.
around there.
Yeah, and I landed into the role of digital marketing. So it seemed like a job that was like meant for me. I had all my strengths aligned with what the position was, so I dove right in. I had no experience in digital marketing prior to that, right? So I've been doing that since about 2017. And with that role, well, it's interesting. 2017 is when I started. It's also like when I first touched on Bitcoin too. I first got exposed to Bitcoin during a time of my life where like day trading was like a little bit of a part-time job for me. My friends on Long Island, you get the Robinhood app. All of a sudden overnight, we think, we're experts day trading. I had no idea what I was doing. Lost money, lost time, started getting into shitcoins after that. And that was kind of like my little the Bitcoin journey up until the point that we're going to get to in a little bit with Stampseed. So back to the digital marketing part. With that position, one of the main roles I started with where I kind of cut my teeth was PPC advertising. So when you go on Google and you search for something, metal stamping kit, Stampseed kit, what we're able to do on the back end is obviously bid on those terms. So if someone's searching for something, our keyword is locked up and we're bidding on that term where our ads are going to show when somebody searches for something like that. So that's kind of where a lot of the work is done when you're bidding on these terms, but also in the search terms that people are actually looking for. So if I have the Bitcoin hardware wallet is what somebody's searching, maybe I'm bidding on the word hardware wallet, right? So I'm able to see that they actually search for Bitcoin hardware wallet, and I can learn from that. I can make Bitcoin hardware wallet, a word that I'm bidding on, whatever. Why I get into this is because in combing the search terms is what I call it. When you're going through like thousands of different queries that people have searched, you're looking for opportunity or things that you don't want to be bidding on anymore, bad terms that your phrases are coming up for that you're wasting money on. So you shut those ones down, but you look for the opportunity. And the first instance where I noticed an opportunity was some of the search terms were for Bitcoin metal, Bitcoin seed plates, hammer for stamping Bitcoin seed words. And it's like, what is this, right? Like usually I wouldn't pay any attention to it, but there were sales tied to these terms. So people were buying the impress art items that Adam was just talking about for stamping Bitcoin seed words, which at the time, like I said before, I was into Bitcoin, but more of like shitcoiner, right? Just trading, not really holding or cold storage. No idea what this was. The only thing we knew is there are sales tied to this, right? So, I know we're going to get into it a little bit, but basically that spun into initiative to try to figure out how we can optimize this listing. So when you go to optimize a listing for impress art things, we can't just start putting Bitcoin on there, right? We have to make something brand new for this application. So I presented to Adam and Jeff. We brought together all these tools that made sense for people to get started, and we just launched on Amazon. And that was like our first instance of getting into a different brand, really. It was under a different brand name. And, it's kind of like, I guess, my story into the background of how I learned about Bitcoin and how Stampseed kind of became a new initiative internally as well. So, fast forward to where we are today, we've been around for a few years now, and I'm sure we'll dive into all that good stuff in a little bit. But it's kind of funny. You go from seeing a seed word, a search term about seed words. We turn into a company. We're here with you today to talk about it. We traveled around the world and talked about it too. It's pretty cool to be able to have this opportunity.
What's interesting about this journey that kind of both of us have been on is like we've kind of entered into Bitcoin. We kind of got orange pilled and kind of through like a side door here, like not in a very traditional way, where like the product kind of brought us into Bitcoin. And, we've had to learn a lot about Bitcoin, cold storage and everything. And both of us are like totally into it now. But through the product, through the conferences that we've done, I mean, we've traveled now all over the world doing different conferences, sharing our product with different people, demoing it, and we've learned so much. I mean, we've met some like amazing people. Everybody we've met is super, super smart, which kind of helped orange pill me. It's like, all right, these guys are way smarter than I am, so they must know something that I don't, which made me research more into Bitcoin. But I mean, we've met everybody from Michael Saylor, Adam Back, Jack Mahlers saw the product. Anybody else that you could think of?
A lot of people we might not know.
Great content creators.
We might not know some of them. A lot of have the face coverings, right? So a lot
True.
of anon people in the space. But no, definitely learned a lot from going to these conferences. And that's the key, right? Like we came from a background where, exposed to Bitcoin in terms of like buying, selling it, speculating on it prior to Stampseed. But we pretty much learned a lot about what cold storage was, why it's important. And that was all kind of through those search terms. Prior to that, I had no idea that you could take your Bitcoin and put it into cold storage, which, we recommend everyone do, right? Don't hold it on the exchange, put it into cold storage. But what do these words mean, right? That was like the thing. Okay, well, like what's a Bitcoin seed plate? When I was back in the day, combing through the search terms, what is that? Like you could just put your Bitcoin on metal? That's intriguing, right? So it was interesting. That's like usually the end of someone's journey into Bitcoin, like putting their seed words in metal or figuring out a way to make them timeless or time proof. That's the last step. So we kind of had to work backwards. And what is this? Why are people doing it? Why are people stamping letters into a plate of metal? Why is that important? Why can't you store it online? Why should you not have it on paper? All these kind of questions we asked ourselves to basically learn what I feel is the most important part about Bitcoin, other than it's decentralized and scarce, that you could hold it yourself and be your own bank. So the product that we offer enables people to do that in probably like the most low-tech way possible, right? Like turning people into blacksmith again, basically by hammering stuff right into metal. So
we always say it's a low-tech solution to a high-tech problem.
Yeah.
I know you touched on it a little bit, Adam, but do you want to dive into any more of your Bitcoin story? And I know the conferences, you kind of already touched on that. Going to the conferences, which you guys have been at a lot of conferences, and meeting everyone has been a big part of what's made an impression on you. I remember being at the Nashville conference this year with you guys and hanging out in the booth And you guys were so busy that I didn't even actually meet James because you guys were so busy. I mean, and I was walking around. It was, I mean, that's a great problem to have. So,
yeah. I mean, that really was kind of my introduction. Aside from James really kind of like started it and really introduced me to Bitcoin, but it was totally reinforced through these conferences and just talking to people about it and seeing the passion and understanding. And, even though like when we're at these conferences and we're really just like demoing our product and talking about, the features and benefits of it to consumers, there's a lot of great conversation that goes back and forth, and it's really very educational for us. Mm-hmm. I mean, I learned so much at these different conferences from just random people that walk up to the booth. That's really what sold me on it, and I am a extremely, extremely conservative investor. I'm a horrible investor because I'm too conservative. It was really difficult for me to buy something as volatile as Bitcoin, but from the reinforcement over and over again and talking to so many people and really getting a better understanding of what Bitcoin is and what its future might look like, it pushed me over the edge to shift a good portion of my savings into Bitcoin.
So you said that James kind of got you into Bitcoin. James, what was like, how were you initially introduced? Was it during COVID or?
So it's a little, first touch was 2017. I was at a brewery with my best friends and Bitcoin came up. It was a conversation and it came up because of the price it was per coin. At the time, like I was saying before, we were like amateur day traders, so I just had unit bias where, $20 for this stock, $15 for this stock. Then you hear something is $17,000 and, per Bitcoin. It just kind of became a topic of conversation, something intriguing. And then from there, I went through what most people go through is what I call the shitcoin journey, where you make your mistakes, you learn a little bit. Very high time preference individual at the time. I was trying to save money for the engagement ring for my wife now, saving for a house. I was in school part-time. Things, a very high time preference. I didn't have enough money to really save, so I wanted to get rich quick, right? So like, how did all these people get all this money from Bitcoin so early on? What's the next one out there? Is it Dogecoin or is it any of these other shit coins that are less than a penny? So I learned, went through, had Bitcoin, sold it, had it again, sold it. Once I realized that, unit bias doesn't matter. You could buy sats, you could buy portions of Bitcoin. So I went through that little phase up until about 2020. And that's when things really took a shift for me because that aligns at the time where Stampseed really was born, I guess you could say. That those early days of looking at those search terms and kind of combing through the endless rows in Excel. So at the time, like we said before, the search terms are coming up: cold storage, seed plate. I had to learn what this thing was. Like, we can't just sell something that we don't understand. So it was kind of unique where I got to learn a little bit more about Bitcoin, but learn a little bit more how to optimize these searches that people are having. Not so much by the way the ads look, but by actually having a product that makes sense for them, that's marketed and branded towards them. So what's cold storage, right? What are seed words? Questions that I started asking myself, and that's where the Bitcoin rabbit hole kind of started for me, where I broke away from all the other coins. It broke away from all the other stocks. I didn't look at it as any one of those. To me, it's strictly savings, long-term savings. I don't plan on using this, anytime soon, and it's a lot easier for me. So, learning what cold storage was, learning what hardware wallets are, led into learning about what Bitcoin actually is. You listen to your podcast first, and then you get a little deeper. You start reading books about it to understand the technology behind it, the problems that it solves. And there's so many little aspects of life that it seeps into and influences or can change where, that I'm still kind of going through that journey, I guess you could say there. But what's unique is that Stampseed kind of propelled it. Like, without that, I don't know if I would have really understood what cold storage was that early on. It would have been completely foreign to me, like it probably is to, most people in the world. Probably don't realize they could buy parts of Bitcoin. Most people probably don't realize they could take it into self-custody or cold storage, or they might just not want to. But, that it was kind of unique to learn what that meant up front is usually what I feel is like the last thing people kind of learn, right? So that's kind of how the journey started, and it's still going on today. We had I had the unique and fortunate opportunity to be able to travel, with Stampsy, with Adam. We've been to, like you said, Prague, different conferences all around. The first conference was actually complete crypto shitcoin conference because we didn't know. Like, I wasn't like Bitcoin only at the time. It was just like, oh, it's crypto, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we went to this very small conference that I don't even remember the name of to just learn a little bit. And that was like the first instance. And, from there, the company shifted to more of a Bitcoin focus. We want to send out that message. And we've gone to Bitcoin only conferences since. And, also working with a lot of creators like yourself, other podcasts out there, we are partners with. We want to let people know what Stampseed is, what cold storage is, because it's something you have to see, it's something you have to know. So having the unique opportunity to be able to work with these people has helped me kind of get through my journey and understand a little bit more, a little faster too. So, yeah.
Can we dive into like what is cold storage? Because just yesterday, I was actually in or near my hometown in Pennsylvania. I was talking to a guy that has a real estate group, 30, 50, 100 people show up once a week. And he's like, yeah, we'd love to have you come and present, talk about Bitcoin. And it seemed based on our conversation that he just bought Bitcoin for the first time, over $100,000. I'm like, oh, did you do it on an exchange? Did you do it through an ETF? Just trying to have a normal conversation with the guy. And he's like, oh, I just bought it on Robinhood. So like, I just, I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So the point just being like, I don't think most people out there, or I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing like, what is cold storage?
Sure.
If you can walk us through that and down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, I guess like first, right, I'm pretty sure it's still the case. Robinhood doesn't even allow you to do cold storage. I don't think you can move it out of Robinhood. Here in New York, Coinbase is pretty much the biggest, it's the biggest exchange, but it's the only one we could actually use. So use that as an example. You go and buy Bitcoin off of Coinbase. Say you buy $100, you're just getting started. Cold storage might not even make sense then, right? Because cold storage is an investment. You have to spend money to do it. So what are we protecting $100 for, right? It's not really that much of a risk. And the reason you want to take cold storage is because when you buy Bitcoin off Coinbase, Coinbase has the Bitcoin, right? It's basically the same thing as giving your money to a bank. They can rehypothecate, send that out, reinvest it. Is that Bitcoin really real? So cold storage is important for you personally because you actually control the funds. It's also important for, Bitcoin supply, and that rehypothecation would not be a thing. You don't want Bitcoin on paper, which the exchanges have the ability to do. And early on, and it's less of an issue now, but still could be new threats, I guess. You don't want it held in someone else's possession, right? Like there could be, who knows what's down the road, I guess you could say. Let's leave it there. In the past, exchanges would get hacked. Obviously, you don't want to keep it on the exchange because you get hacked. Or the owner of the exchange won't let you withdraw if you're one of the biggest wallets. So all of a sudden, you can't withdraw it. That could be a problem. I think it's still happening here and there for various reasons. You just want to take control of your money. So it's important for those reasons. Otherwise, it's not really your Bitcoin. The phrase, I'm sure a lot of people have heard it, but those who haven't, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. And that's pretty much the case. And then to simplify the process, you buy it on Coinbase. Okay, I buy $1,000 in Bitcoin. Okay, I can justify investing in putting this in cold storage. What's the investment? The investment's the hardware wallet, which is like a USB stick, imagine, that you're sending the Bitcoin to, which basically generates your own set of private keys. So when Coinbase holds the Bitcoin, they hold it in their address, and each address is comprised of the public and the private key. Public key, you give me your public key, Tim, I'm able to send you Bitcoin, right? I give you mine, you can send me a Bitcoin, but I can only send it if I have the private key. I can only send it at that wallet with that, private key. Right now, Coinbase has your private key if you're in cold storage. So you're giving someone the keys to your funds, essentially is what it is. So by moving it to a hardware wallet device, hopefully one that's closed sourced, high quality, Bitcoin only, you ultimately you set up your new wallet, which is really you generating a pair of private keys with a public key tied to it. And you just simply send it from the exchange, which you could do right in Coinbase, to that new address. It's going to come off the exchange, and it's going to really be held under, your own address that you can say, hey, I have the keys to this Bitcoin. It's not really in the wallet, but the wallet helps you configure everything, and you can, that's how you set it up to send your, that's your signing device, right? That's your actual, what you use to sign these transactions. So you move it to the wallet, it's there. When you're setting it up, private key is a long hexadecimal strand. I think it's like 63 characters. Very hard to remember, uppercase, lowercase numbers. you can't look at it and have a photographic memory and understand what it is. So there's a protocol, BIP39, which simplified things and turn that seed phrase into a mnemonic phrase, where that's where Stampseed comes in. So when you're setting up these wallets, it's going to give you what are seed words, usually about 12 to 24 unique words that generate your private key. It's your ultimate backup. So you know, when you're putting Bitcoin in cold storage, you're taking full responsibility over it. You are literally your own bank. There's no support line to call up if you get locked out of your funds. So those seed words are the most important thing that you own. That literally is your Bitcoin. So if your hardware wallet becomes destroyed and you didn't record your seed words, you know, you're done, right? So when you buy these wallets, they give you a little piece of paper, which, you know, we're against, obviously, because we stamp our words into titanium. You write down the words on the paper, and you know, you do whatever you want after. Say your wallet breaks, gets stolen, destroyed, EMP attack, you know, whatever the case may be. Those seed words that you have, the 12 to 24 words, could be spun up in any other wallet, basically, and your funds are there. So I could put my Bitcoin in cold storage on a wallet, record my seed words, smash my wallet with a hammer. 50 years from now, buy another wallet if, you know, they're still around, or just, you know, I have spare ones. Set up that wallet. Are you storing this from a previous wallet? Yes. Previous backup. Put my seed words in and everything's there. So you can't do that with any other form of money. Like, you can literally just transfer it anywhere in the world, bring it anywhere in the world, memorize it, stamp it on metal, hold it for years. No one could touch it. It's a complete cold storage. So that's important, right? Like, you want to be able to have full access to your funds, you know, have full control over them. And it's daunting. You know, you have to be very responsible, but it is a huge power to be able to do something like that. Now, there's other ways to do it. That's the most simple way. It's single signature, where I have my private keys and they're just my keys. And, you know, if I lose them, I'm done. There are other ways to do collaborative cold storage or collaborative multi-sig self-custody, where basically you could set up those keys in a way where it's a 3 of 5, where I need at least 3 out of the 5 keys that I own to unlock the funds. So it's like in those movies when you see a key go in to like set a nuclear bomb off, like 2 keys have to go in and turn. It's kind of like that. So if one went down, you'd still have 4 more to choose from because you only need 3. So it's a form of multi-sig where there's a little less risk, right? Like and a lot of people do that with maybe the family attorney has a set of keys, you know, you have one, and maybe the collaborative multi-sig company that you're working with, because they're out there, you know, they own the other one basically. But you want to make sure at least whoever has a majority of those is trusted and, you know, someone within your control. So, you know, cold storage, very important. Stampseed comes into play with that because, you know, you buy your hardware wallet, it's not coming with metal. It's coming with that paper that I mentioned before. What happens if that paper burns, degrades over time, gets wet? You accidentally throw paper out. What we do is basically turn that paper into metal. Like the user does that, where they're hammering each letter one by one into a posted size slab of titanium. It's fireproof, rust-proof, non-corrosive, time-proof, right? Like it's not breaking, and it's hard to throw a piece of titanium out that you stamped. A piece of paper, maybe. It's just much more memorable to have. And from there, you could store it however you want, right? It's there's pros and cons to it. In any way you slice and dice cold storage, it's a pro and con debate. It's never a debate that'll be solved. It's really just a matter of preference.
We're kind of like an upgraded security option for people. And, you know, depending on how much you have in cold storage, you know, that kind of dictates, you know, how much security you want, right? It's another way to look at it as like an insurance policy. You know, if you have, you know, we'll use dollars just to simplify it, but let's say you have, you know, like $100, it probably doesn't even make sense to go into cold storage at all. You know, the hardware wallets themselves are like usually around $100, maybe a little bit less. Let's say you have $1,000. You know, at that point, yeah, you probably do want to get a hardware wallet, move it into there, or a portion of it into there. Then if you accumulate more than that, now you're starting to think, all right, let's say I have $100,000 or even more on this hardware wallet. Well, now you start thinking about that piece of paper that you wrote those words down on. And all right, well, what if something happens to that? One story always comes to mind when we're talking about this. Somebody that we had met a couple of years ago was telling me a story where he had 750 Bitcoin. This is years ago, but he had 750 Bitcoin. He had them in cold storage. They were stored on 2 separate hardware wallets, which, okay, good. He took the extra steps to separate it. And, each wallet was in a different house. He had 2 houses, and they were both in safes in both houses. He had his words written down on paper in the same safe as the wallet, which that's okay. The issue was both houses were in Northern California where they had the wildfires. All of it gone. Entirely gone. Had he stamped his seed words into something like titanium, he would still have his 750 Bitcoin today.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of crazy stories out there. We get to hear a good amount of them because of what we do. But our goal is really to make sure that nobody has to tell those stories anymore.
Right.
And then just another thing on the banks to add to what James was saying about the banks. Another major risk that you have is 2 major risks with the banks. First of all, like something like Coinbase, there's no FDIC insurance. That money doesn't really exist. There's nobody backing that up. And if something ever happened to Coinbase or whatever bank you're holding your Bitcoin or crypto in, if something happens to them, it's gone. It's totally gone. So that's another reason why you'd want to move at least a portion of your crypto or Bitcoin into cold storage.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing scarier than, even if it's temporary, you see a lot of people temporarily locked out of Coinbase when they try to withdraw, provide more information to verify who you are, set up 2-factor authentication. Then all of a sudden it's our system's down right now, or you receive an email that there's a technical issue with your account and you have to reach out. Even if this for those few seconds, when you have a sizable amount and you can't access it, no, I never want to go through that or have to deal with something like that. And who knows, right? Anything could happen in the future. Things change. One day you can't withdraw it for whatever reason, whether it be one I just mentioned or something more legitimate, I guess you could say. Governments change, rules change. Just get it off of there, hold it right into cold storage. You're buying Bitcoin. You're buying the most sound money there ever is, and one you could hold for real. So might as well do it, take advantage of it. That's how I look at it.
Can you walk us through your approach to designing the stamp seed product? Were you oh, we should just put it on a piece of paper? No, we should put it on this other material. No, we should put it on titanium.
Yeah, well, it started out the early days. The name of the brand wasn't initially Stamp Seed. During those early days of R&D, after going through those search terms, a lot of other situations when those search terms are good for ImpressArt, how do we optimize this listing on Amazon, let's say? In this case, it was how do we optimize an actual product? So how do we create something that puts everything together and buttons it up into one kit versus people piecemealing things together, which they're currently doing. Mm-hmm. So the initial process was really going to Adam, and we were looking for what we had a lot of, what made sense to put this kit together. And we had some tools in-house. We had to get something specially made for this application, like the plates themselves, right? We didn't actually have a piece of metal big enough to put the seed words on. So that was the biggest thing. That was the first iteration of the kit.
Right. The first one, we actually just made an aluminum plate the size of a credit card.
Yep.
That had 24 lines for somebody. And we had just extra stamp sets that were hanging around in the warehouse that worked for that we just needed to move, and we kind of bundled them up on Amazon. That's kind of where we started with that.
And then what would happen, we would sell out of those letter sets, right? Oh my God, we sold those things have been sitting there for years. We just sold them through Stamp Seed. This is amazing. What's the next one? So we kept kind of going down the pallets to getting rid of this old sort of dead inventory for the previous company where, people wanted these very plain looking metal stamps for seed words. You don't want anything fancy, right? You don't want script. You want to be able to read this thing 50 years from now. Mm-hmm. So we kind of went from depleting all the excess stock throughout the warehouse to the point where we're like, okay, we're out now. We could keep, as you keep kind of working down, there's less and less product to work from, right? We start with the biggest pile and then we start looking, this is all we have. What do we do next? And that's where we pivoted. But along that line, we stopped aluminum and we went to titanium under the other brand because aluminum's just not fire resistant enough. Titanium is going to survive nearly triple the average house fire. Aluminum is a few hundred degrees below the average house fire. Right. It's going to withstand. So, you don't want it melting or corroding away on you.
Aluminum's better than paper. But
Sure.
if you're going to go through the trouble, do it the right way.
Yep.
There's no reason to do it on aluminum, brass, copper, steel. Like, sure, you could do it on like steel. Steel's actually really hard to stamp, but titanium is the best. So why not, just start with that?
Is that what makes it different? Like, are there other products out there, but they're not on titanium, or without talking about other stuff?
There's a lot of if you go on Amazon, there's a ton of different things out there.
Okay.
We actually don't even sell stamp seed on Amazon anymore.
Okay.
We moved it off of there because there's too much garbage on there and too many copycats and things like that. But I think what James was about to get to when we were talking about like kind of the journey. So we moved over to titanium, and now the issue with titanium is, all right, well, how do you stamp on titanium? You're talking about this is like aerospace grade industrial titanium. This is not really meant to be manipulated like that. And we really had to draw from our metal smithing kind of background and look at the different hardnesses of the stamps, different ways to make the stamps. We looked at everything from what kind of base to use on it to make sure that you have sturdy enough surface. And what we came up with internally was a jig, which we'll get to shortly. We'll show you the actual product. But we designed a special jig that has a steel plate inside it. That's your base. And then what it has is a window that's specially designed to fit just the line that you're working on. So if it's your first word, you can stamp in your first word within that window. It's designed to work with our stamps and our titanium plates. And it's actually, we have a utility patent on it. So it was unique enough that we're able to do that. And when you bring all of those together, the specially designed stamps, the jig that helps with spacing, lining up the letters, and giving you the appropriate support underneath it, when you combine all of those, I would say the success rate is like in the high 90 percentile. I mean, how
Higher.
often have you seen
higher.
somebody? I mean, we don't get any complaints.
Yeah, we've had kids do this
sold
at conferences.
Tens of thousands of these at this point. And I've never had one person that it got back to me that somebody was unhappy with it.
Well, like a big part of the development, we spent some time developing this, like over a year, I would say. It was during the pandemic, so there was some extra time to do things. What could we do different? And that was one of the things. But one of the constant themes throughout the development was the products that we were making through Impress Art were for people that knew what these tools were. They knew how to use them. They probably used them hundreds of times already. They don't, they have, people know what they're doing here. With
They're
stamp
also
seed,
passionate about learning to metal stamp.
Yeah.
Stamp seed, these people are just looking for utility purpose.
Well, presumably never have stamped into metal before, which I'm sure there's probably people watching saying, what the hell is stamping even, right? To people who have maybe never swung a hammer before. Like I've had that at conferences. Like I've never swung a hammer. Like I'm a computer tech nerd. I don't know what I'm doing. But people have a lot of success because the constant theme of developing the kit was making sure you could pick this up for the first time and do it with success. We don't want people messing up. We want to sell a product that's meant for everybody. And let's face it, stamping into metal doesn't seem like it could be the easiest thing. And with a lot of the brands that are out there on Amazon, they're kind of like just scrapping these things together without doing the research. I'm not even talking about like a competitors we know. These are just like randos on Amazon that are putting garbage together. They're not spending the time to make sure this thing actually works. So, with the heavier metal like titanium, two tools that I looked that really made it successful were the hammer was beefed up, right? Our usual hammer that we were selling for a while was 1 pound. So this is a 2 pound heavy weighted hammer. that you'll see in the video, but it's literally a patented hammer that MSTR patented for metal stamping, but it's much heavier than the traditional one. You have that extra weight. And then the jig itself that Adam was mentioned before, that also holds the plate in place. It's not bouncing around on you. The stamps themselves are all marked in a certain way, so you're holding it the right way, and you're getting everything in there nice and neat. The jig that you're holding the plate in also is making sure you're not like stamping too far over into the cell. It forces you to stay in a certain spot, because these are all the little things that could be happening when someone's doing this for the first time. And we want people to be one and done with it, right? Like you can't erase the letter H that you stamped into titanium. There's no way to erase that. You could put an X through it and start again, but we just want it to be the cleanest way possible for someone who just saw it for the first time. And that's why it took like over a year to basically come up with it. And in the video, we'll go through all the tools and what makes them good and unique, and it'll make a little bit more sense.
Great. We're going to pause now and go to the demo.
So this is what a basic setup looks like. So you have your titanium plate. Then you have your stamps that are designed to work with the titanium plate. You got your stamping hammer. So that's a 2-pound hammer. You got our patented jig. And then underneath that, you have a steel anvil. That's going to give you extra support underneath and help get deep impressions. And so let's show you how it works. So you're going to slide the titanium plate into the jig and line up whichever row you're working on. So we're going to start on row 1. So this is your first C word. We're going to take our stamp. Now what you're going to notice on the stamp that there's a line on the bottom. That's designed to help you line up each letter. So you're going to match that up with the line on the jig. You're going to hold it straight up and down. Take your hammer and give it one hard whack. Okay. And you can see we got a nice deep impression there. And so now we'll just continue with the rest of the word and stamp one letter at a time. And so to stamp an entire plate, we were asked this pretty often, how long it takes. I would say we usually tell people to block out about an hour, but it should probably take about 45 minutes to get a full plate done.
And we're back. Is there, what's the lead time, I guess is one question for the product, kind of like behind the scenes. What is that process like? And are there, on the sales side, is it like it's a bull market? We're selling tons of these. It's a bear market. We're not selling as many, or what's that experience like?
It's a very difficult balance with an inventory-based company like ours, especially with Bitcoin that could be as volatile as it is. Our lead time is about 5 months. By the time we order product, we have it made by our suppliers and shipped to us, it takes about 5 months. And as you know, in the Bitcoin space, things can change very quickly within a 5-month period, a couple times.
Right.
So managing inventory is a constant challenge for us. Fortunately, most of our customers, almost all of them, are patient enough that they're happy to pre-order when we do run out of product.
Okay.
We just hit 100,000. What was it? A couple weeks ago now, and it seems like when we hit that milestone, things just went absolutely like crazy, and we just sold out of everything like almost immediately. Fortunately, we have more inventory coming. We're about a month away, but these are the challenges that we're constantly having to deal with. Yeah. I guess they're good problems to have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What is in store for the future as far as Stampseed's concerned?
So we have some exciting new products coming out. And they're really all based on feedback that we've had from our customers. Like I said, we talk to a lot of Bitcoiners and others in the space. And we've kind of like taken all that feedback and designed product based around that. So one thing that'll be coming out in the near future is a 12-word plate. So it's a little bit smaller than our 24-word plate.
Okay.
For those who just have 12 words and want a smaller size form factor, we'll have that. And then the other thing that we had actually been working on from really day one, people always asked us about the 4 holes that we have in the corners of the plates. When we designed those, that was really there for a variety of reasons. One was we figured it was good utility. If somebody wanted to hide it, they could go up in their attic and screw it into their rafters, or they could bolt them together. They could do a lot of things with it. But a lot of people were asking about, ways to cover up the entire product. And so what we're coming out with is a cover and back plate, all titanium. It uses titanium screws to kind of bolt the whole thing together. And that way, let's just say you have it in your safe, your house burns down, and it's recovered. It's all covered up so nobody could see what those words are.
Got it.
And so, so that'll be coming soon. They're designed to cover 1 plate up to 5 plates. We're going to have them for both the 24-word plates and the 12-word plates. So those are both pretty exciting. And another thing that's going to be really soon is personalization. So we collaborate with a lot of artists within the space, some really talented Bitcoin artists, and we offer their designs on the site, and they get some of the commission on that. But we're working on a way to allow anybody to go on our site and design their own plate. So let's say you want to add a logo or a picture, or even if it's just like information, not your seed words. Don't give us your seed words.
Right.
You'd be surprised how many people ask us about that. Oh, so I give you my seed words and you stamp it in? No. I think you need to do a little bit more research.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, like if somebody wanted some kind of an image or anything on the plates, we'll be able to customize those for you and personalize the plates.
And so does that go on the back of the plate or around the edges, or is it like sketched in ahead of time, basically?
At the moment, we're really focused on the back of the plate.
Okay.
We're kind of having some internal conversations about, do we allow people to also customize the front of the plate? The jury's still out on that one. Not really sure if we're going to do that or not yet.
And maybe you don't want it to be too busy if that's where the goods are.
Yeah.
I just don't want people giving us information that we don't want.
Right.
So that's really more of the concern with the front of the plate.
There are some new people in the space that don't understand what those words really truly mean, and maybe just have way too much trust, which,
trust but verify, and also keep your seed phrase to yourself.
If we go for
Yes.
the front, there's a fear that people might, send that out. Plus, that's like the template. That's what that's our plate, right? That's what it looks like. That's how it's recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
but the custom part's going to be really, that's going to be cool. That's going to be a game changer, I think. There's ways to make that, yours, right? You could put something like a meme on there that you like, or the Bitcoin logo, or something cool. You could put, something discrete that doesn't look like, anything. If you're doing something like a multi-sig setup where you have that 3 or 5 wallet setup, maybe each one is a little different, or, you give one, if you're inheritance planning or something like that, each child has their own design on the plate, or something like that. You can really do anything. Plus logos will be a big one, I think, too, right? Giveaways, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to talk about the website a little bit? Because I know, Adam, you have the video where you maybe you can tell the story, sent one of these plates down to the bottom of a body of water for a year and then pulled it back up. And I mean, there's a lot of resources on the website. You can order the product on the website.
Sure, yeah.
It is stampseed.com.
Stress testing, I mean, it's on the website, but that's kind of a separate thing. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun with that. I mean, we know what it is. We're not really concerned about it getting damaged. I mean, at a certain point, you can destroy titanium. It's not like completely indestructible, but you got to really make an effort to do that.
And it's showing the proof of work. Like, hey, we sent this down to the bottom of, whatever that body of water was for a year, and then pulled it back up, and you can still read the words. You're putting a torch over it, you can still read the words.
People want to see.
Yeah, so that was just next to the Atlantic Ocean that we put the plate down. It was a friend of ours in his backyard. So we put it down there for 1 year. It was a year to the date, right? Mm-hmm. We did 1 year, pulled it back up. It was all covered in like gross like slime and all other crap. And you'll see in the video within like seconds, we cleaned it up. Everything was like brand new.
Yeah.
So that was fun. What else did we do? We rolled it over with a steamroller. That was very anticlimactic. We were like, all right.
It's like, all right.
Like, oh, this is amazing. It's a guy with a steamroller. Let's have him run over the plate. So we put it in our parking lot. It was like, all right, nothing happened at all to our plate.
It's one solid piece, right? There's no like little loose pieces or screws or anything involved that's going to fall apart or break and scatter, right? Like this is, so it was obvious. So it's like, yeah, this is definitely going to pass, but who knows, right? A 5-ton steamroller, I think.
I don't even know how
rolling
big
over it,
was,
like there's rocks under, like do the rocks dent in and mess up the letters or anything like that? It looked fine. Like I was actually kind of upset it didn't look worse. I'm like, no one's going to believe it. Nobody's going to believe
this product
we did
is too good.
Right. It's like I want people to see the damage and see the words are there. So I'm like, yeah, it looks like we didn't test anything. Like, it's,
wow.
But we've done fire too, right? Like
fire's a big one.
We did
That's the major concern.
Over the fire, when the fire coals build up all those embers, we dug it under the embers for like 2 hours. There's really nothing that could really break it, right? Like you can see all those tests on the site. We did some time-lapse videos. They were 2-hour tests. So
the one thing with the steamroller that was interesting, there was some little pitting, from little rocks and stuff like that, which had no effect on us at all. But what was interesting, it started a conversation about a lot of the other options that are out there for seed storage that rely on dots. So one thing about our product is, like James said, it's one solid piece, it's titanium. And the other thing is we're allowing you the option to stamp your entire word. Not, a lot of other options are just the first 4 letters.
Okay.
Or they utilize dots. They'll use like a center punch and they have a grid and you're just stamping the dots on there. Well, in the steamroller situation, which is a little extreme, but let's just say, I don't know, let's say your house burns down or something and it's getting trampled or whatever.
Right.
Rubble and...
I mean, it's very easy to add a dot, or a number of dots. You put it on the ground and dirt and step on it, and you're going to end up with like a bunch of extra dots. So like, it really kind of showed us like, all right, well, there's a reason why you wouldn't want to use those center punch options.
Makes sense. And the reality is anyone in the world could go to the website, order the product, and it could end up anywhere. So who knows what the future holds if, here in the United States, any other country, there are house fires, there are steamrollers, there are, bodies of water. So it may sound extreme, but this is a really important asset that you're trying to protect.
The one that we did not pass was we had met these guys that were Navy SEALs.
Okay.
And they asked if they could try to blow it up. We're like, that's awesome. Let's do it.
Okay.
So we sent them a bunch of plates. And what did they do to it? Do you remember?
They strapped like quarter sticks of dynamite to it. They shot it with various different firearms. I think there were 1 or 2 guns that didn't. Yeah, there were 1 or 2 guns that didn't penetrate the plate, but the other guns blasted, right through it. Like these are pretty serious weapons, right?
Yeah.
It was
not normal stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun one though. I wish it passed that. We wanted to get those plates back too, but there was so much gunpowder on them that we couldn't get them back.
Wow. These guys were in California.
Okay.
And so we never figured out how to get them back. They said we can't put it in the mail because there's I guess there's explosives all over these things.
Yeah.
And I guess the Postal Service has mechanisms in place to detect for explosives.
Okay, makes sense.
So they say like we can't really put it in the mail. So we never really figured it out. I don't even know that you can get it on an airplane. Like,
I mean, you can't even
I don't know
go.
if you can walk through an airport with that kind of.
I know that if you,
You would think
it'll get flagged. I mean, I guess you get it through, but it's an interesting dilemma, and we never got those back. But we do have pictures.
Yeah,
I know. I was at a shooting range once, and they were like, one of the questions was, "You guys aren't flying today. Like, you won't be able to get on the plane with gunpowder all over you." So I don't know if it's something that is getting picked up or sniffed, whatever the case may be. But I'm sure it was the same fear with the mail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Low chance of it happening, I guess, but it could happen.
Yeah. Kind of a funny story how we met. So it's December of 2024 right now. So last summer, 2023, my girlfriend's like, hey, come with me to my friend's birthday party on Long Island. I'm like, okay, great. So we show up. And we'd been dating maybe 6 months, so everything's great, but I'm just trying to make small talk. And of course, what do I say to Adam is, I'm just trying to make small talk. What do you think about Bitcoin? You have any thoughts on Bitcoin? And you're like, yeah, I like Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, you know, like you're even familiar with Bitcoin? Oh yeah, I go to the conferences. I'm like, what? Oh, I'm a vendor. I'm like, what? You pull out your phone. You're like, here's a picture of me with Adam Beck. I'm like, who is this guy? What do you do? And I'm like, show that picture to Elizabeth. And I'm like, do you know who that is with Adam? She's like, yeah, it's Michael Saylor. And I'm like, she only knows that because she's dating me. But I was like, what? And she's like, oh yeah, Laura's been my best friend since we were 12 years old. I'm like, this is a small world.
So the way I remember it,
a
little different. I remember, we met at the party.
Yep.
And I think it started with us just talking about like work.
Yep.
And I go into my whole like thing and, you know, like, all right, because nobody knows what the hell I do. You know, when I have to explain what I do, it's not the easiest thing to do. And, so when I get to the stamp seed portion of what I do, you know, I always start by like, oh, do you know about Bitcoin? 9 out of 10 people say, yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you know, how much do you know? Are you well versed in Bitcoin? Oh yeah, no, I know a lot. Okay, do you know what cold storage is? No, what's that?
Sure.
With you, it was totally different.
Okay.
You know, like that was very unusual for me. I was getting very excited. Say, like, all right, we had the conversation, and you're like, yeah, no, I know about Bitcoin. I'm like, all right, well, do you know what cold storage is? Yeah, I know it. And then we started like kind of riffing back and forth on it, and it was like, wow, I'm actually talking to somebody who really does know about Bitcoin here.
Yeah.
And we kind of hit it off from there.
Yeah. At a certain point, you're like, yeah, the one product is like stamp seed, and I just had to, I think I looked away. I'm like, I'm at the owner of Stamp Seed's house right now. It's very wild.
I showed you the pictures of like Michael Saylor. I'm like, my God, he actually knows who I'm with. Nobody else knows who this guy is.
And it was a year and a half ago, so we're still early.
Yeah.
So I sure see that meme of somebody at the party, but no one else is a Bitcoiner. I don't know if you ever saw that. Like they all don't know about Bitcoin, but in your case, someone else did. So.
And they keep updating it. Like now, you have Saylor over in the corner. They don't know that I own 1%. It's crossed out 2% of the entire supply.
Right.
So it's just a bunch of normies, and you're just like, I really want to talk to somebody about Bitcoin, but not a lot of people out there, and that's why we're here, right?
Well,
talking to
it's more and more. More and more.
The people that want to talk about Bitcoin and putting it out there for everybody to digest if and when they choose to. So, yeah. Well, I went to a very fancy website called Amazon and handpicked orange ties for both of you. They're very carefully crafted in a wrapper from Elizabeth. So I'm excited to give those to you guys, and appreciate you guys coming in, and appreciate you sponsoring the show. And I just think this is super helpful for everyone to, like they hear me saying it's one solid piece of titanium, but after seeing the demo, it's like, oh, okay, this, like, you kind of see a little bit more of what the product is, and hopefully helps to make more sense for people that are just living their lives and like, oh, okay, well, that's helpful to be able to see this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very visual product, in a digital space, there's not so many things like this. So, hopefully everybody learned something today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the digital actually coming back into the physical world.
A low-tech solution to a high-tech problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we got the orange ties.
And you knew I wanted an orange tie,
yeah,
too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We've been talking about the orange ties for a while now.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming into the studio. It's always so fun to do this.
Loved it.
In person. And hope everybody has a great holiday.
Yeah.
Too.
Same to you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks for having us.